To the local paper. Put it in the local paper.
Now we're going to come to the gun subcommittee, okay? That was their task, was to come up and see if there's any consensus items with regard to gun violence. As you can imagine, 20 years there, whether it was abortion, gay rights, death penalty, in my experience, nothing, no thing has ever had so much emotion and focus as this whole gun debate. There are various, as you can imagine, sides to it. On one, I hesitate to use the word extreme, but I'm trying to give you the points of both sides. There are some people who believe that we have a constitution that has the Second Amendment, doesn't believe that's fact. It says a well-regulated militia gives people, I'm paraphrasing, the right to bear arms. Fact, the state of Connecticut Constitution, which is allowed to go further than the federal Constitution, provides the right, it was ratified in 1965, this isn't something in the 18th century, a right for every citizen to bear arms in defense of themselves.
And we have a Connecticut
Excuse
state
me,
militia.
excuse me.
We have a state militia.
And just people believe that enough said that should be the rule. On the other end of the spectrum, we have some people that believe there should be no guns allowed except for police and military. Connecticut historically has been in the middle of all that. Okay? Before the tragic events of 12/14, we have various regulations, rules, and laws on the books concerning guns. We were rated by the nonpartisan foundation, the Brady Foundation, also the AMA Foundation, and also Brown University, as the state having the fourth strictest, toughest gun laws in the United States of America. In the state of Connecticut, you have, you must forgive me, and I know there's many people there who are gun aficionados and will correct my terminology. I am not one. I'm not a hunter nor a marksman. But I felt, as my colleagues did, whether we were or were not, if we were going to legislate with regard to this issue, we better learn as much as we can about it. It's only fair. So I have been, as my colleagues have, immersed in Guns 101, in the terminology and nomenclature of various guns. I will probably misspeak in some instances and could stand to be corrected. But in the state of Connecticut, currently as we speak today, if you want to buy a firearm, it's divided into two categories. It is divided into a long gun and a pistol. If you want to buy a pistol to keep at your home, you have to get an eligibility certificate. In order to get an eligibility certificate, they have to perform a background check on you. You need to be fingerprinted, and you need to take a gun safety course. Only then will you be allowed to purchase a gun. And when you go to purchase it, you're going to have to wait 2 weeks before you get it, as they update that background check. If you want to buy a pistol and carry it with you outside of your home, you have to get a permit. In order to get a permit, you have to have the same criteria for an eligibility certificate, be fingerprinted, take a gun safety course, but also be judged suitable by the chief of police of your town or municipality where you either live or work. In order to buy a long gun, regardless of the type, there is no such requirement. You do not need to get an eligibility certificate. When you purchase the gun, there needs to be a background check, a quick check. When you go, if you went to a gun store to buy a gun, it's called a NICS check. It's a national background check to make sure you are not a prohibited user, a felon, or otherwise prohibited. You have to wait 2 weeks, typically, before you get your gun. It's a sort of what's called a cooling off period. Also, if you have a gun and you have a child, a person living in your home that's under the age of 16, the law says there are requirements as to how you must store your gun while it is home. It must be locked in a storage compartment. Those are some of the existing laws as they are today. We are one of- Excuse me?
Any laws pertaining to buying ammunition?
There are no laws buying ammunition. If any of us wanted to go to Walmart right now, we could show our license, I believe, and you were allowed to buy ammunition.
Driver's license or the hunting license?
Driver's license, hunting license, by the way, if you have a hunting license, the only way you could get a hunting license, you have to reapply every year, is you have to take a gun safety course. And when you initially apply for them, there must be a background check as well. And if that's on file with the Department of Environmental and Energy Protection, and if you go for the following year to renew that license, their annual calendar years, you, so long as I believe you're also fingerprinted, is in the file, you would be getting that hunter's license.
How about gun shows?
Gun shows, good point. That is one of the places some people felt there were loopholes. In that if you went to a gun show, there's 6, I believe there's 6 that are held, maybe less in the state of Connecticut in any given year. And a couple of things happen at gun shows from what I understand. You have the licensed vendors that are at the shows that are able to sell guns. And some people will sell guns privately on their own in the parking lot. One of the things we do not have is any real restrictions on if Joe Dokes owns a rifle and gets tired of it and wants to sell it to his or her neighbor, Mary Brown. Unlike what I just mentioned, there is no certificate, no permit, no background check. The law requires that the person selling the gun knows or should know that that person they're selling to is not a person who would be prohibited from buying a gun, one who's been arrested, etc. I am not doing justice to all the gun laws out there. There are hundreds and hundreds of them, but that's where we started. That's the starting point of where we are. Yes, sir?
Do the present laws discriminate in any way about the type of weapon you should own?
Yes.
Whether it's a gun or what you call the long rifle, now a military weapon,
Yes.
or military.
Yes, our current law, thank you, sir, we are one of only 4 states that has an assault weapon ban. We started in 1993. I was there, I voted for it. And what it did is it listed specific types of brand names of guns.
It's 53202A is the bill, statute.
And in addition to that, it said that the following type of weapon for a long gun is going to be considered an assault rifle and therefore illegal. It says any gun that is semi-automatic in nature, and for those of you who don't know, an automatic weapon is strictly prohibited in the state of Connecticut. That's a weapon where you depress the trigger, hold it, and it shoots out multiple rounds. A semi-automatic weapon is one that in order for every bullet to leave the barrel, you must depress the trigger. Now obviously, there are guns that are very sensitive to that, and several shots can be done rather quickly, okay? But anyway, sir, to answer your question, if a gun has 2 of about 7 characteristics, it is banned in the state of Connecticut. Those characteristics are a flash suppressor, which is something that's at the end of this, I'm talking a long gun now, something at the end of a barrel that suppresses the flash, typically used in the military to disguise from the enemy your location, a bayonet clip, a detachable magazine, a pistol grip, or a stock, that's the part you butt up against your shoulder, that is telescopic, or a grenade launcher. If currently in Connecticut, any long gun has any 2 of those things, it's considered an assault rifle and is therefore banned. That's current law.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, are there any regulations on the aftermarket on the upgrades, I know that when your bill was passed, there was a major question on the upgrade kits that would turn a semi-automatic into a fully automatic.
Yes, it is our current law that prohibits that from happening. So those characteristics I just mentioned, talking current law here, if you went out and bought the accessory kit to take to your gun that you bought legally and added those things on, you've now turned a legal weapon into an illegal weapon, current law.
Is it
But
known
don't the
where
gun
the
manufacturers modify those restrictions to make them, quote, legal?
Well, you make a good point, and I'll give you an example. On the day of 12/14, we were at the Capitol negotiating deficit mitigation. I turned to the television, as we all were, glued to watching the events, and there were 3 guns pictured. Now again, I concede I am not a gun aficionado. 2 were handguns and 1 was a long gun. And my immediate reaction is, I thought we banned that. When I went to learn about the guns, the gentleman held up 2 rifles at the Department of Public Safety. He said, what's the difference between these 2 things? They look pretty much the same to me. Again, untrained eye. He said, one is legal and one isn't. I said, why is that one illegal? He said, this one is illegal because it has a bayonet clip. This one is illegal because it has a telescopic sight. It's illegal because it has a pistol grip. He said, the manufacturers took this gun, they made the stock permanent, they removed the flash suppressor, they removed the bayonet stock, so the only characteristic it has, in addition to the detachable magazine, is the pistol grip, thereby legal in our laws.
But the working mechanism is the same.
Working mechanism is the same. However, on the other end of that argument, as I'm learning, I'm dating myself. You might remember Chuck Connors and the Rifleman. And when we think of rifles, we think of those wooden stock guns. I have been introduced to several guns that look like Chuck Connors and the Rifleman, that do the exact same thing, with the exact same bullets, with the exact same velocity as the gun I just described that's illegal, and the one I described that's legal. The exact same thing.
Pure cosmetics.
It's pure cosmetics. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think this avalanche of detail is absolutely fascinating. You can find it on the internet, anywhere. But the fact is that while we are waiting, we have had 2,600 gun deaths in America since Sandy Hook. That's a fact. Connecticut is called the cradle of the gun industry. I think there are well over 2,000 employees.
3,000.
3,000, thank you very much. And we just heard that long, depressing account of our state's finances. And what do you think will happen if stricter gun legislation, hopefully, is passed with those gun manufacturers? How will that affect the legislators that are going to be voting one way or the other?
Well, it's certainly a factor, but let me get to the point where we are. So with that
Let's
background,
answer this question first.
how will it affect? Well,
Yes.
obviously you'd have to ask individual legislators, but I'll give you an example. Colt Firearms employs 700 unionized employees. There has been scuttlebutt around that if certain laws are passed, depending on what they are, they would cease operation and move.
Okay.
If I was, and I'm not, I live in Norwalk, if I was a legislator in the town in which they are, and I knew that my municipality, my neighbors, and economy would be affected by it, I might think differently than somebody who lives somewhere else,
As a legislator.
as a legislator, yeah.
Well,
Now, we balance public safety with all these rules, rights, constitutional and otherwise. And that, folks, is the debate that's raging right now. That's the debate. There's a bunch of people out there, 4 of them are right here, of 187, that are trying to do this the right way, the smart way, and effective way. And even people who don't know beans
and
about
moral
guns.
obligation, what is the moral obligation?
Thank you.
Thank you. Where you're going to speak up, my goodness. where is the moral obligation?
Freedom is the moral obligation.
The moral
Freedom,
obligation.
individual.
We have gun owners have
moral
rights just like
obligation for
everybody
public
else.
safety and a whole bunch of factors,
Freedom.
a whole bunch of factors.
All he's saying is
Let's stick to the Second Amendment, because that's really what it's all about. And once they start chipping away,
Every one of us
then
took
we
a
lose all our
constitutional
rights
oath
as
to
people.
uphold the
Just keep that in
United
mind.
States and state
Assault
constitution.
rifles when they wrote
And
the
that's what we're
Second
You know what
trying to
an
do in the
assault
most
rifle is?
They had
respectful way.
defense rifles.
And I think we're going to do it. And just as an example, let me tell you where there was common ground. Where people agree on things. And then I'll tell you where people disagree on things and where we're at.
I think we're in a
Just
good
like in this
microcosm.
room, excuse me?
We're in a very good microcosm of debate.